what is going on, everybody? This is Beanie and welcome back to another video. Guys, I apologize that I haven't been doing really much of anything this past week. I have had a really bad week, guys. It's actually my great-grandmother, but she has been very, very sick, and we've been dealing kind of with the fallout of that, and my family is pretty close-knit in that regard, and anytime that, you know, we have somebody who is in the later parts of their life, you know, maybe, and I don't know. It was just a thing that I needed to kind of be with my family, and we needed to kind of address that, and I didn't really have time to make videos or anything like that, but I am back. I hate that I missed the new content update because I think it was amazing, and today we are going to be reviewing all of the new players that came out, along with the Adam Wainwright and the Reggie Jackson, who, because of the issues with my grandmother, I wasn't able to review last week. So with that being said, let's get into the player review. Okay, we're going to start out with the program players that came out like a week and a half ago. Starting out with the 99 overall Reggie Jackson. It's another outfielder. As you know, Outfield is really, really deep right now. It's hard to get excited about new guys that are coming out unless they're really just like a five-tool guy. Even if they're a great hitter, it's kind of hard to get excited about them. And this Reggie Jackson is definitely a beast at the plate. I mean, 91, 99, 77, 97 with 70 vision. That is very, very good. But he's not that great of a defender. He doesn't really have a ton of speed. I know a lot of people really like that 90, I think it's a 94 overall Reggie Jackson, because I guess they really like his swing. They think he has a lot of power and stuff like that. So maybe this guy's bat will really play up. This is one of the newer guys that I haven't tried out yet. I just haven't finished his program. But so that may be the case. Maybe his offense really does play way up compared to some other really kind of OP outfielders. But just looking at his attributes, I'm not super excited about this card. I do think that he's going to be well above average, and I think that his bat is going to play. But the fact that he doesn't have great defense and that he doesn't have a lot of speed, that doesn't make me too excited about this card. So I ended up giving him a fag of a 7.6. Okay, guys, we got a lot of players to review. I mean, a lot of freaking players. So I may be running through these a little more quickly for the rest of these guys, but I'll still try to be as thorough as possible. Next up, though, we've got this 98 overall Adam Wainwright card. And a lot of people seem to be down on this card, and I have no idea why. This card looks amazing to me. First of all, out of relievers, this guy probably has the best pitch selection in the game. I can't think of another reliever that has a sinker, a cutter, a curveball, a circle change, and he throws all of them really effectively, like a lot of break on all of his fastballs, like his sinker, his cutter, lots of break on those, a big slow curveball, a really good change of pace pitch, a decent changeup to go along with it. There's a lot to like about this card. And the fact that that his velocity isn't terrible, I mean, he's going to be able to run it up into the low to mid 90s. And when you have a sinker that's breaking as much as his does, and he throws it relatively hard to a lot of other people's sinkers, that's an extremely valuable pitch. And he has really good per-nines to go along with it. I love this card. I think a lot of people are down on it for the wrong reasons, just because, you know, he's not like a reliever that has 99, 99 per-nines and 99, 99 velocity and break. His pitch selection will really make this card play up. So I ended up giving him a really good fag. I ended up giving him a 9.1, and honestly, I stand by it. I think that this guy could be amazing. Okay, sticking with the Cardinals, another outfielder that come out, and an outfielder that I think honestly is a lot better than that Reggie Jackson card. First of all, he can also play first base, which is actually really interesting if you have kind of a loaded outfield and you want a really good hitting first baseman that also has really good defense. I mean, this would be by far probably the best defensive first baseman in the game, but probably most people are going to want to stick this guy in the outfield, and for good reason. He has great defense. His speed is a little on the low end for a center fielder, but the reaction and the fielding will make that play up. And he is a monster versus righties. 95, 97 is fantastic. The only thing that kind of worries me a little bit is the 33 vision. I'm a guy who likes a bigger PCI. I know there are a lot of people that don't really mind having a smaller PCI, but I'm definitely not one of those. I have to have a bigger PCI so I feel more comfortable moving around in the zone. And against lefties, it could become more problematic considering he only has 70 contact. But overall, he's a really, really good hitter. I also like the 97 discipline, even though I really don't look at discipline that often. I've noticed that high discipline guys do a much better job of check swinging and getting, whenever they appeal to the first base umpire, the third base umpire, they'll get a lot more favorable calls in that direction. So I do kind of like that about this Jim Edmonds card. Overall, though, this card is really, really good. I like him much better than the Reggie Jackson, and I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.3. Next up is the 97 overall Warren Spahn, and man, a lot of people are kind of the same way about this card as they were about the Adam Wainwright. I haven't heard a lot of just glowing things about this card, and I just don't get it. First of all, this guy, his pitch selection isn't I would rather have a guy who was like a sinker, cutter, curveball, slider, changeup type guy. But the fact that this guy is a lefty with a screwball, that is something that nobody has seen in this game, and you're not going to be seeing that often. It's just different. And anytime you have somebody in this game that is really unique as a pitcher, it can really throw people off. And a left-handed screwball, if I were going into it, I don't know how I would handle that right off the bat. It would take me a little bit to adjust. And it's not like he's a scrub when it comes to anything else. He throws pretty hard for a lefty. He has a good slider, a good curveball, a good changeup. His per-nines are fantastic for a lefty starter. There are a lot of things to like about this card, but the big X factor is the screwball. If you can utilize that screwball effectively over the course of the game, then it changes it makes his fastball play up, it makes his curveball, his slider, and his changeup play up. It makes everything else better, and I think that it's going to be a really difficult pitch to hit. So because of that, because of the really good per-nines, and because his stuff is relatively good for a left-handed starter, I ended up giving him a fag of a 9.0. I know a lot of people may think that that's really high, but I'm telling you, I really think that this card and the Adam Wainwright are going to be better than people think. All right, moving on to the 99 overall Koji Uehara card. Man, there are some relievers that get huge overalls, and they aren't really all that usable. And this guy kind of fits that mold. I don't think he's unusable, because if you can utilize that splitter and the cutter and the curveball, and you can really spot well with this guy, which it will be easy to spot, the 99 overall walks per nine is a really, really beneficial thing. You can like everything about this card, but it's just so hard to get past 50 velo. I mean, he's going to be lucky if he can break 90 consistently with his four seam, and it's just so hard to be effective as a reliever when that's the case. Honestly, I would probably stay away from this guy's four seam altogether and just throw a splitter, cutter, and curveball, and hopefully his cutter has a good bit of movement on it, and it's not just so slow that it's easy to adjust to. If that's the case, then this guy probably does get a little bit more usable. Obviously, his per-nines are great, so that could also help in that arena. But for the most part, I think that this is just an above-average guy that I'm going to end up grading a lot better, because on the surface, his pitch selection looks good, and his per-nines are obviously great. So the only place where I really penalized him was in his stuff. So I do think that his fag is kind of overinflated relative to how good he's actually going to be. But I would approach this card with caution, because I do think that there's a chance that at the higher levels he becomes basically unusable. So I ended up giving him a fag of a 7.9, but like I said, I do think that could be a bit high. God, I said I was going to try to run through these quickly, and that's just totally not happening. I have too much I want to say about these cards. Oh, well, fuck it. We'll just have a really long video, guys. But anyways, we got the 93 overall Pablo Sandoval. This is a card that I know a lot of people were looking forward to at the start of the year. And if we would have gotten this card at the beginning of the year, holy cow, dude, this would have been everybody's third baseman for forever. Like, and people would have loved this card for the longest time. The fact that it's been released later in the year is just kind of disappointing because a lot of people have third base locked down already, and they don't really have a lot of room. The one argument that could be made for this guy over at third base is the fact that he's a switch hitter. And he does hit both sides of the plate fairly well. Against righties, obviously, he's a monster. Against lefties, you know, good contact, okay power. Like, he's not bereft of power. If you get a hold of a ball, you can still hit it out with him, but it'd be nice if that were in like the high 70s or something. But he also has really good vision to go along with it. I will say one thing about the Pablo is that he is a little bit on the shorter side, not to like the extreme like a Willie Calhoun or a Jose Altuve or a Joe Morgan, but he is like a little bit shorter, and it does squeeze his PCI just a little. So if that's something that affects you, you might want to take that into account. Defensively, his glove isn't great, but he does have a really good arm that could possibly make up for it. But he probably is going to have a good bit of olays over at third base, and just probably is going to be below average. And his speed is awful. Like, he's going to play a lot like maybe the Victor Martinez or something like that. As far as his speed goes, it's not good. So I definitely penalized him a good bit when it comes to that. But overall, I think that this card I think I got this guy's fag right, and I got Koji's a little overinflated, but they ended up coming out with the same overall fag of a 7.9, even though I do think that this guy is going to have a lot more utility than the Koji. I do think that this is a guy that could be very usable in a lineup. Moving on to the 96 Daniel Murphy, and holy crap, guys, I am in love with this card. The only thing about this card that pisses me off is that we're going to be getting it around the same time that we get the Roberto Alomar card, so he loses a good bit of value when that comes out, because, you know, most people are going to have, or not most people, but a lot of people are going to have second base locked down. So if I have that Roberto Alomar, I'm not going to use this Daniel Murphy, but I still think this Daniel Murphy card is maybe at the moment, even though he's not out yet, like, we have to wait for the event, just looking at this card, he is the best second baseman in this game not named Roberto Alomar, at least offensively. Like, if you want to value the defense pretty high, you can, and you know, overall that may make like the Cano or the Morgan or somebody like that a little better, but offensively I don't know of a second baseman that's better than this guy. He's a monster against righties. He's very, very competent against lefties. He has good vision. Your PCI is going to be plenty big. I love this card. I think if you don't get the Alomar and you have a need at second base, this is the card for you. I would take this card over the Jackie Robinson, over the Altuve, over a lot of guys at second base, even the Cano, even the Utley. I would take this guy. So the 96 overall Daniel Murphy, I think, is a phenomenal card, and I ended up giving him a fag of a 9.0. Okay, well, they did come out with a 99 overall Justin Verlander card, but apparently it's not released into the inventory yet because nobody has finished that mission. But that's okay. I may try to put him up in editing. I may not. I don't know, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about him. He's a guy that has really good pronines. He has great pitch selection, but the one disappointing thing is that he doesn't throw as hard as I think he should. Like, he has, I think, 82 velocity and 83 break, which is good, but you would think a guy of Justin Verlander's caliber would throw harder and have better secondary offerings. If that was the case, this guy might have an argument for the best pitcher in the game. But as it is, he's just a really, really, really good pitcher. Like, definitely top 10 in my opinion. I think he's going to be a guy that you want to have on your team if you have a need at pitcher. If you have one guy that's not cutting it as good as like the rest of your rotation, this is the guy to replace him with, because he is going to be great. but not as good as I thought whenever I heard that they were releasing a 99 Verlander. So with that being said, I ended up giving him a fag of a 9.1. Man, I really wish that he had like 97 velocity and 90 break or something, because if that were the case, I would make a legitimate argument that he would be the best pitcher in the game. But as it is, I just think that he is probably a top 5 to top 10 pitcher. Okay, guys, I'm about to make a huge reversal on my position on Wade Davis. I have, and a lot of you guys know this, I have always said that one of the most overrated and overused relievers in the game was the Diamond Live Series Wade Davis card. And I stand by that part of it. And I thought it would be really hard to make a pitcher like Wade Davis usable, because he was basically a 2-pitch pitcher, maybe a 3, if you count the cutter, a 3-pitch pitcher. And his big secondary was a knuckle curve, which in my opinion is one of the worst secondaries to have in the game, worst breaking balls to have in the game. But this guy is great. I absolutely love this 99 overall Wade Davis. And the big reason is because they added a changeup. Now, his changeup is probably not going to be very good. It's probably not a pitch that you want to throw all the time. Probably you want to use it kind of sparingly. But just the threat of having a changeup changes the whole game for Wade Davis. Because now, if you're a lefty, before, all you really had to worry about was the 4-seam cutter and knuckle curve, and really just like a fastball or a knuckle curve. And it was pretty easy to adjust to like the cutter, to adjust to the knuckle curve, and sit on the fastball, and you could crush everything that was thrown at you. Now you have that changeup to worry about. It's in the back of your mind. So that makes everything else play up. And that means that this guy is going to be very effective against lefties. He was already fairly effective against righties. I am in love with this card. If I can afford him, or if I can get him in Battle Royale, he will make it into my bullpen. I think that he is going to be just head and shoulders above his Live Series card, and it's all because they added the threat of a changeup. And because of that, I ended up giving him a fag of a 9.4. And I know a lot of people are going to say that's high, but I don't care. This guy is going to be a stud. Okay, now we have the 99 overall Ken Griffey Jr. card, and it's just kind of redundant, to be honest. Like, we already have this 99 overall Griffey, and they are different cards. Like, the other one hits righties better, even though this one is very good against righties, and this one has better contact against lefties, but doesn't have as much power. The other one has a slightly better defense, but this one has better speed to go along with already really good defense, and it's just a weird card. And most people at this point already have the 99 overall Griffey, and if you have this card, there is no reason to go out and spend 500,000 stubs to get this one, because it's just, why? They're so similar in value. Both of them are great, but both of them are just too similar in value to each other. So why would you want to do that? In my opinion, I think that this is going to be one of the least used cards in the game. People that have buy orders up right now for 500,000 stubs, I don't get it. Unless you just didn't do the Diamond Griffey program and you don't feel like doing the rest of it. At that point, I can understand it, but it seems like those people wouldn't have 500,000 stubs just like lying around. I know that this isn't exactly a review of the card. It's just my thoughts that this is a weird card. This is a weird release. So, but I ended up giving him a fag of a 9.4. I think he's great. I just think he's like hyper redundant. Like the most redundant card in the game so far, probably. I don't know. It was just really odd. I would have rather had somebody else as the big Battle Royale reward of this month. It was just a weird card to me. Okay, now we're going to talk about the new future stars that were released. And I know I'm skipping over some players. There were some players that I just didn't really feel like they needed a review because I think people could kind of recognize. Like the 93 Cal Ripken. We already have a 94 Cal Ripken and a 99 Cal Ripken. I think we kind of know who he is as a player and that 93 version isn't any more appealing than the other two, right? So yeah. Anyways, this 92 overall Jose Barrios card is awesome. He's not like unbelievable. He's not like a top 10 pitcher or anything, but they have been coming out with some really, really intriguing future stars pitchers. I'm not as high on the hitters, but the pitchers have been really, really intriguing. And this Jose Barrios is no different. He comes in well above that 155 hit and K per 9 mark that we always want to set, coming in at a 164. That's very, very good for a 92 overall diamond. His pitch selection is very good. I know a lot of people like like having that slurve. It's a very rare pitch. For a guy to have in Diamond Dynasty, and it tends to be really effective against right-handed pitching or right-handed hitting. He also has a sinker, and he also has a four-seam that he throws pretty hard, and a decent changeup to go along with it. That's everything that you could really ask for in a starting pitcher. This guy is just a really balanced overall pitcher that also has a sinker and a slurve to go along with it. So because of that, I ended up giving him a relatively high FAG. I ended up giving him a FAG of an 8.6. Moving on to the 90 overall Nomar Mazara, and I'm not that high on this card. The position players just don't really do it for me for the future stars. They're just not good enough. They don't hit good enough. They don't have good enough fielding or speed or something. There's a big problem with almost all of them. But this guy is okay. It's just outfield is so deep that is anybody playing this guy over, Beltran or Ken Griffey Jr. or Mike Trout or Cargo or Jacoby Ellsbury? No, nobody's playing this guy over those guys unless Nomar Mazara is like your favorite player ever and you don't really care about like the merit of having someone out there. I mean, he's not a bad player. 86, 89 is good. 66, 77 isn't terrible. 61 vision isn't terrible. His defense is average. He doesn't have a lot of speed, but it's not a terrible card. It's just not somebody that really, gets me interested in anything. So because of that, I ended up giving him a FAG of a 7.2, and I feel like that's about right for this card. Next up is the only gold that I have reviewed so far in this player review, and it's the 89 overall Luis Gohara. And I know a lot of people are going to say that my bias is showing, deciding to review this guy. And in some sense that may be true. I am a huge Braves fan. I'm a huge believer in Luis Gohara. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. And so there may be a little bit of bias showing for me here, but I think that I do have some things to back it up. Let's start with his pitch selection. He's basically a four-seam slider changeup guy. It's not ideal like you'd like him to have like a viable fourth offering to go along with a slider in the changeup, but for a lefty starter, it's not that big of a deal. There are a lot of guys who only have that four-seam slider changeup. They make it work, and they become really, really good pitchers in the game using just those three pitches and maybe mixing in the two-seam every now and then with it. His per nines are great. They're, I believe, are they better than Jose Barrios? What was Barrios? Was he a 164? And this guy would come out to, a 166? So his per nines are even better than Jose Barrios's. And his stuff is where I really start to fall in love with this card. This guy with 94 velocity is one of the hardest throwing left-handed starting pitchers in this game. He is going to consistently be running it up to 97, 98, maybe 99. He is going to be throwing extremely hard from the left-hand side, and that is so valuable because people don't see that often. Most of the left-handed pitchers in this game don't throw that hard. Like, there are a few. There's like James Paxton and a few guys like that, but there aren't many. Most left-handed pitchers are not power pitchers. And this guy is, and that is really intriguing to me. He also has a slider that has a lot of bite on it. He also has like a 14-mile-per-hour delta between his fastball and his changeup, which is really effective whenever you're a lefty throwing that hard. I love this card. I think he's totally viable. I have bought him. I'm going to use him in my rotation. I'll have, I'll probably do a gameplay or something that you'll see of him, and you'll get to see how good he is. He's not like a permanent fixture in my rotation. I just want to see how he performs, and I think it's going to be well above average. So because of that, I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.5, and if you think that's too high, you can suck a D, because there are not that many left-handed starting pitchers that are that throw this hard with per-nines that are this good. So yeah, suck a dick. What did I give him? An 8.5? Yeah, 8.5. Suck my dick. Another diamond overall future star is the 90 overall J.P. Crawford. And I mean, honestly, I'm not that stoked. I mean, this card is just like there. Like, is anybody going to use this card, really? I mean, really, you're honestly going to use a guy at this point in the season with 81 contact and 65 power versus righties and 67-55 versus lefties? Like, yeah, okay, he's a decent defender, and he has a little bit of speed, but you couldn't find anybody to play shortstop that was any better than this guy? I mean, come on, kid. Come on, kid, you're better than that. 6.2. Or no, sorry, 6.8. Gave this guy a fag of a 6.8. Yeah, not that great. Kind of overinflated by his defense and some speed. But yeah, J.P. Crawford is a card that exists. Okay, now moving on to a card that I actually really like, and it's the Luis Castilla card. Kind of reminds me of the Jose Barrios a little bit, but he throws like way harder. This guy, his per-nines aren't as good, just a 162, but that's still well above that threshold. I might need to move that threshold up to 160 at this point, because there are just so many pitchers that passed the 155 mark that I've been setting all year. So I'm honestly, I think I'm about to do that and kind of adjust the grades, accordingly. But the velocity, obviously, he's going to be throwing freaking Chad. He's going to be throwing so hard for you. You're going to love it. He's going to be a freaking flamethrower. And he also has really good off-speed stuff to go along with it. His slider, honestly, kind of reminded me of a left-handed version of Luis Gohara's slider. And his changeup is kind of the same way. I don't know. He's kind of a right-handed version of Luis Gohara with a sinker. And that's pretty scary to face. So yeah, this Luis Castilla card is a freaking stud. I really like him, and I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.8. And the final card that I'm going to review is possibly, I didn't grade this guy as high as a lot of other guys, but he's possibly my favorite card that got released in the past update, and that is the 92 overall Walker Buehler. And the reason I love this card is just because he is so freaking balanced as far as his per-nines, 169 combined. That is the best of all the future stars that were released with this last crop. His velocity and his break is very solid, 84, 83. I believe that's even better than Verlander's, so you can take that, take that for what it's worth. And then his pitch selection. He has the vanilla standard, the four-seam, the curveball, the slider, and the changeup. But he also has a cutter. And that cutter is really, really effective for a fifth pitch. Like, I've actually used this guy in-game, and his cutter, it moves way more than you think it would for a pitch that is his fifth in his arsenal. It should be the worst. It should be almost unusable, but it's not. And he throws it really hard, too. He throws it like 95, 96. I even think I threw one like maybe 97. Like, he throws his cutter really, really hard, and he throws his four-seam almost just as hard as his cutter. So, and his all-speed stuff is fine, too. His all-speed stuff is very, very workable. And because of that, man, I've just kind of fallen in love with this card. And this is a guy that I could see using for a while in my rotation. I used him once, and he was very effective. I think he went 5 innings and gave up like 3 or 4 earned runs, which doesn't sound great, but I was playing a really good opponent, so it's not as bad as it seems. But I want to get this guy in my hands more so I can really try him out and really get a good sample size with him, because I love this card. And I ended up giving him a fag of an 8.9. And yeah, I don't think that he's like head and shoulders better than all the other future star starting pitchers that got released, but I do think that he is a little bit better than all of them, and I think that I love him, and I think that I want to marry him. So yeah, I love this Walker Buehler card. He is awesome, and I don't exactly know who he would replace in my rotation, and he probably will eventually come out of it, but I do know that I think that this card is going to be very, very usable for a lot of different people. So yeah, guys, that is the freaking player review. I know that there were a lot of guys that I didn't go over, and that was kind of intentional. I just thought that there were a lot of guys in this release that really didn't warrant a review because they had, cards that were already better, or they were like so bad that I didn't really think that, anybody would really want to use them, or for some reason like that. But anyways, guys, that is going to do it. Once again, I apologize. This has ended up being like my longest player review ever. But I apologize for not being around, the past week. Just family stuff, man. But I'm back at it, and I'm glad to be back, guys. So yeah, I will see you guys later. Until then, peace.